Mr. Chairman, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight on behalf of my amendment to H.R. 1. Throughout my life, I've abided by the mantra, we should never make assumptions about who desires to have a stakehold in and a seat at the table of our democracy. I do believe that if my amendment is enacted, that it will serve to re-engage, re-enfranchise, and recognize those in our democracy that are too often ignored, left out, and left behind. I am here tonight, however, because across this nation, young people are leading the way, which has been the case for every social movement throughout our history. They are organizing and mobilizing and calling us to action, making plain the high stakes the next generation faces, from gun violence to climate change, to the future of work, to the solvency of Social Security. Activist leaders like 17-year-old Ayanna, a constituent of mine and a student at Boston Latin who has been at the forefront of the March for Our Lives movement to stem the tide of gun violence. It is young people like Ayanna who march, organize, and remind us daily in the halls of this institution what's at stake and just how high those stakes are. Since the days of abolitionists, suffragists, and civil rights activists, young people have been pushing the wheels of progress forward. These youth, our young people, who will inherit the nation we design here by virtue of our policies or by default of our policies and authority, these very same young people should also have a say in who represents them. For your consideration, Amendment number 127, which would lower the minimum voting age in federal elections from 18 to 16 years of age. At the age of 16, our young people have the opportunity and awesome responsibility to drive a vehicle, to gain employment, and even to pay taxes. In fact, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2018, nearly 2 million young people between the ages of 16 and 17 were employed, contributing to our labor force, to their communities, their local economy, by paying taxes. And to be clear, this is not simply enhancing income, this is critical income to the stabilizing of households. And although I'm introducing this amendment, I'm not the first to broach this idea. As is so often the case, history repeats itself, particularly when we do not learn from it. In fact, 49 years ago to this very week, on March 7th, 1970, Senator Ted Kennedy argued before his colleagues in a subcommittee of the United States Senate in favor of lowering the voting age from 21 to 18 as an effort to, quote, bring our youth into full and lasting participation in our institutions of democratic government, unquote. To remind you contextually of where we found ourselves at the time, we were in the midst of the Vietnam War. A fundamental question was being asked. The fact that our young people were old enough to fight in a war thousands of miles away, but were not old enough to have their voices heard in our democracy by casting a vote. One would argue that we are at a critical moment in time, a very similar crossroads as a nation, at a time where our young people are at the forefront of some of our most existential crises facing our communities and society at large. The time has come. Our young people deserve to have the opportunity to exercise their right to vote. We celebrate them often and lift them up as foot soldiers of movements. We thank them for their sweat equity that they expend at the forefront of change, and they should also have the opportunity to be respected and celebrated as ballot casters. I hope you will join me in extending the full promise of a representative government to the up-and-coming generation. Our youth are not only the future, they are the present. I respectfully request your support for Amendment number 127, and I thank Representatives Meng and Schakowsky for their leadership for leading on this critical issue.